Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I don't know what time you're watching this, but I am filming this at nighttime and I have never filmed a video at nighttime. It feels very cozy. I have my light up and I just feel like this is the most perfect time to talk about the cyclical natures of the mind, the natural cyclical natures of the mind. I said the word natural twice and nature twice because I want to emphasize that these aren't things that we necessarily need to escape from. It's just sort of understanding and identifying. We just came from a really intimate conversation about spirituality and why it's important and how to practice it. And I left you with some practical things that you can do to help you sort of help yourself, honestly. But this is like taking it a step further. This is about analyzing your brain, right? So I'm trusting that you did the journal exercise and that you went through and audited your thoughts. Now I want you to take it a step further and I want you to understand what is happening in your brain. Once you start doing this, it will really, really help you. I honestly believe so. And obviously, if there are any questions that come up as you watch this video, feel free to leave them below. I will do my best to answer them. So let's talk about the cyclical natures of the mind. Vrittis, these are the mental fluctuations that our brain experiences. And these are natural fluctuations. So we are going to cover judgment, misjudgment, imagination, sleep, and remembrance. So these 5 are repeating patterns that occur in the mind and really shape our reality, right? Think about judgment, misjudgment, imagination, sleep, remembrance. I want you to put your guesses on what we're going to be talking about in this video and maybe like journal them on the side, because I think it'd be really interesting for you to sort of say, okay, this is what I thought misjudgment was, but this is what it actually is. And this will maybe help you start to reframe some of the things that maybe you thought were true. So the 5 that I mentioned can either stabilize your mind or derail your mind. And that's why it's essential to pinpoint and to identify what these are. So let's get right into it. The first one is judgment. So you can judge something through 3 means: direct experience, inference, and acquisition. Direct experience is like I directly experienced something. So I went outside, it started raining, my clothes got soaked in the water, and so now in the future, I will bring an umbrella if I know it's raining, right? I directly experienced what it was like for my clothes to get soaked in the rain, and now I know to bring an umbrella. An inference is kind of like, ooh, the clouds are kind of gray. I probably should bring an umbrella. It's probably going to rain. And you were inferring that it's going to rain. Acquisition is reading about rain, reading about clouds, and saying this is the kind of rain that will occur. So acquisition can be sourced from multiple different places. You know, we hear it from Vedas or scripture or our gurus, teachers, parents, some sort of authoritative text or figure that tells us, hey, this is the truth of the matter. You are now acquiring that knowledge. So a judgment can come from those 3 things, and that is happening all the time. We are constantly judging something. We are constantly sort of forming these statements in our mind of what is true about the world. So obviously, this is one really big way in which our reality can shape. Pay attention the next time that you make a judgment on something. Is it from a direct experience? Is it from an inference? Or is it from an acquisition? What I've noticed is that a judgment is typically a neutral thing. It doesn't necessarily hold a negative connotation. It's just like, it is raining, or I need an umbrella. So there's no necessary like emotion behind it or connotation behind it. So try to think of it like that the next time a judgment comes up in your mind. So the next one is misjudgment. And this can come from sort of our acceptance of falsehood, sort of our subscription service to falsehood, to illusion. And I was having this conversation the other day with my mom and my family friend, and I sort of felt like the state of where we are as human beings is we are kind of always under the characteristic of falsehood, because we barely even know who we are. We identify as our body all the time, And so naturally, our state of being is in a sense of falsehood. We are our Atma, right? And so you must be sick of me saying that. I sat in this chair in this position said those words 1,000 times, but I hope it's like, you're starting to identify as one, as your Atma. But falsehood, right, is essentially what is false. It's like your guise, it's the illusion, it's the veil. Misjudgment is rooted in the misidentification of reality, and it often causes us to confuse appearances from reality. We tend to continuously be in misjudgment as we misunderstand certain situations, and we continuously are in the cyclical pattern of misunderstanding. And again, that's evidenced in our identification of being and our body, right? We are constantly in this cycle of not really knowing who we are. Therefore, we make all of our next moves based on that misidentification. So the cyclical nature of misjudgment is always upon us, as judgment is always upon us. So the next time you can catch yourself in misjudgment is this based in truth? And then sort of taking it a step further and being like, what is the truth? Right? What is the truth of this situation? And obviously, as you encounter all kinds of different situations as you go about your life, it can be harder and harder to navigate and sort of understand when you are misjudging something or when you are judging something. But once you start to begin this practice, you will become really, really good at it. And like everything else, practice makes perfect. So definitely log when you are making misjudgments about something. Again, when you are confusing the appearances of something with what reality is. The next one is imagination. And I found myself, really partaking in this practice of identifying the 5 cyclical natures of the mind because of this third one, imagination. I found myself literally dreaming up situations and going down this rabbit hole of my own overthinking. And imagination can be such a beautiful, creative, empowering process, but it can also really destabilize the mind, right? We can, be in this imaginative thought process where it's like, ooh, I'm going to make this video about the 5 cyclical natures, and I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about this. And I'll have this like feeling of this is what I want to talk about. Obviously, the situation didn't occur yet when I was imagining up how I was going to do this video, but I was thinking about it in my mind. And in that way, it was a very empowering and creative experience. However, I have also imagined up situations of how someone else might perceive me. They didn't like me because I said this one thing, or they're probably judging me, or everybody at work hates me, or I'm probably gonna have a really hard day tomorrow. And it's like, it's interesting to me that judgment comes first in this list, and then misjudgment comes, and then imagination comes. Because I find that misjudgment and imagination are very similar. But the way that I differentiate that is just that imagination can kind of make you go down this rabbit hole, whereas misjudgment is like an immediate, this is falsehood. And this is my fundamental belief system that's based on that. Whereas imagination can make you spiral. Imagination can kind of also come from just like surface level knowledge, and we ourselves don't do further research or dive deeper into a concept. And that can cause us to sort of imagine what the proper truth of the matter is. And again, this can be confused with misjudgment, but if you're just going through this practice of identifying a cyclical nature in your mind, I wouldn't get too hung up on the words quite yet. I think if you're just starting, just even you saying this is a cyclical nature of the mind helps you put distance between you and your problems, because then you're like, oh, this is a cyclical nature of the mind. There's nothing actually like wrong with me, but it's just helpful to identify this is a cyclical nature of the mind. This is natural. This happens. But I can help stabilize my mind by identifying it and by sort of saying, I don't want to imagine anymore. I don't want to be in misjudgment anymore. I just want to be in a neutral state of mind. The next one, the fourth one, is sleep. And sleep is a necessary cyclical nature. We need sleep every day. We need rest every day. And it's that time of the day where we are kind of in that non-being state. We are not really aware of our body, right? When we're sleeping, especially in deep sleep, we're not aware of who we are. However, our dreams and how we sleep and what we sleep on and the nature of our sleep can affect our day-to-day life. And so again, this is one of those cyclical natures that affect our perception of the world. And I've had like really insane dreams, especially as of late. I'll have some really crazy dreams and I'll tell my husband in the morning, I'll be like, guess what I just dreamed of, right? And then we may or may not go down a whole other conversation because I had this dream and we talked about it. And so that's one example of how sleep can affect our day-to-day life. Also, if you didn't get good sleep, or if you got too much sleep, or if you're somebody that needs to sleep a lot. So I started this video off by saying I don't want you to take these cyclical natures and think of them as bad, because obviously sleep is something that we require. But it's interesting to understand that it's like an actual disconnect from our awareness. It's actually a complete like pull the plug almost. My family friend used this analogy that I'm gonna steal. It's like an iPhone, right? Like you have your iPhone and you're like working on your phone all day, or like you're using your phone all day, but at nighttime you charge it and like you turn it off. It doesn't mean that the phone is dead. It doesn't mean that the phone isn't working anymore. It just means that it's charging, it's in sleep mode, right? But when it's awake, it's awake. And so that's like one of the cyclical natures of the phone. Similar to that, we have cyclical natures of the mind. The last one is remembrance. Now this is a tricky one, and I'm going to put a little card here about relinquishing shame and guilt, because this one is about our memory, our past. How often do we go into our past? For better or for worse? Sometimes it's a very productive thing. I mentioned it in that video that you can bravely walk into your past and you can bravely conquer some of the things that you've been through by rewriting it and by reframing it and by looking at your life a little bit differently in a more positive, more healed, more healing light, right? Our future selves grant us these little gut instincts all the time. So just like that, we can go into our past and provide our past self gut instincts. And that's how we go into our memory productively, and we, say, hey, you know what? You don't need to be sad about that anymore. You're okay. And just kind of self-soothe. However, that's not how we always look into our past, do we? We look into our past oftentimes with shame, regret, overthinking, and we don't always use that time in the most productive way. When we remember our past in an unproductive way, we can cling to old experiences and old memories and think of them as the good times, or I wish I looked like how I looked back then, or I wish she was so happy back then. I wish I could be as carefree as my inner child, or I wish I could just, and it's like this sentence that starts with, I wish I could just be in the past, or and we cling to these old memories, and it really prevents us from being in the present moment, obviously. And so when you actually say, you know what, I no longer want to be a part of having this memory, or I don't want to have this like clinging to the past, we can identify, oh, this is just remembrance, right? When you identify these 5, you put distance between you and the thought. And that's the practice here. The practice is saying, this is the thought, this is me, my Atma, I'm putting distance between that. There's this word called pramanam, and essentially it's holding on to the knowledge of truth rather than holding on to the distortions of our past perceptions of things. Like, we tend to look at our past with sort of this like lens of our current selves and where we meet, where we intend to be. And so like all of these different versions of us are really colliding when we think about our past. And so oftentimes we don't really have the best perception of how things were. We think about things of how we wished they were, or there's this like sort of distortion that we place on the truth. And when we are constantly subject to remembrance, we lose that grasp of reality. Just in the simple truth that we look at our body instead of our soul, we can kind of see that we're already a part of this guise. We're already kind of in this veil as it is, right? Why add to that? Rather, let's look at ourselves as our Atma, and let's look at all of our past experiences with love and with light and with purpose, this happened to get me to where I am today. And sort of being like, I'm not subject to the past self. I'm not subject to my past self. I've learned. And if I haven't learned, I'm going to learn now, right? And it's like this confidence to move forward. It's this confidence to be like, I'm safe in the present moment. I'm safe to be here right now. So understanding these 5 cyclical patterns help us break free from unhealthy patterns, helps us break free from, sort of things that don't serve us anymore, things that aren't relevant to us anymore, and helps us identify like what you actually and who you actually are in this very moment. I am somebody that has learned quite a bit from my life. And just like that little confidence boost to be like, you know what, I am actually good. I can stabilize my own mind because I have the tools at my disposal to work through some of the judgment, the misjudgment, the imagination, and the remembrance of the past, right? I understand when I'm judging something. I understand when I'm misjudging something. I understand when I imagine up scenarios or imagine creatively on something. And I understand when I'm in deep remembrance. And it's like just the identification of those 5 can really help you transmute those feelings and can help you move to a place where you're able to process your emotions in a really healthy way. I hope you found this video to be helpful. When I first learned about this concept, I was mind blown. I was like, wow, I can't believe it's like written out this way. And it really helped me in my whole journey of auditing my thoughts. It's definitely really helpful to just like at least identify what's happening in our brain. Our brain is such a mystery. It's something that we don't even understand a lot of, right? We have no idea what's happening in the subconscious mind. So at least if we can manage our conscious mind, it will help us seep into the subconscious mind. Feeding ourselves good thoughts, identifying things, and healing as we go, right? Not waiting 15 years to be like, oh, I need to now heal, right? Let's heal as we go. Let's heal, let's create, let's grow, let's have this cyclical pattern that can be, beneficial to us in a way that serves us, in a way that, our brain is already doing it. Might as well tap in and make it productive, right? So again, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much.